Oh, good. Janet's on today.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome.
Good to see everybody.
Yes, yes.
Happy New Year and whatever.
Okay. All right, so welcome back. Today's Q&A, questions and answers. We have about 6 that have come from before the meeting, and so we'll start with those, and then we'll see what's there for any of you who'd like to join in that inquiry. It's very rich and satisfying for me to be with you in this format. It certainly keeps me from going down the line I usually go because I'm dealing with specific pieces, and it allows for things to be revealed in the Q&A that don't usually come forward in other talks that have a theme behind them. So I delight in this, and I hope it serves all of you today. All right, so any announcements or anything of that category?
Well, the 4-day starts on Thursday.
Oh,
so we're looking forward to seeing many of you.
Now, it's not just a 4-day, right?
It's never just a 4-day.
It is either it is the 4-day period of time for the ordeal of the dive into truth. So I don't want to, romanticize 4 days, right? They are not something your ego would choose to do. And I recommend that if you do choose it, you can know that your ego isn't choosing it. It is your divine nature. So that helps you know where you are on your journey and where you are right now. But it is so important to keep coming back to that 0 point, that place of everything being stripped away and being present with that. Because that is the foundation of this work, is that quality of learning to live in that stripped away simplicity of that very quality that is the origin of your existence, of all existence. So it's a dive into the Sat. It's a dive into that principle from which everything that we know arises. And there's something about this particular ordeal. It's like coming out of the snow and going into a hot tub, but the other way around. going into the snow, and then when you come back to your life, it's going back into the hot tub. It is a reset button that impacts biologically our system in a way that makes all of this more real for you. All right. Anything else?
No,
Nope.
I think that sounds good.
All right, so we're going to just go down the line. We reviewed the questions. I kind of grouped them together a bit. So here we go. Let's start. You're going to read the question, honey.
You want me to read the question? Okay. We did not practice beforehand.
She's not here to practice either.
Okay, this is from Adipriti.
Adipriti.
Dear Sat Shree, despite your good advice and guidance, and despite my not necessarily good but still best efforts, I still experience lots of anger, shame, and sadness during my meditations. But when I look at the events I'm angry, ashamed, or sad about, often it does not make very much sense for me to be so emotional about these events. So I wonder if you could talk about these emotional experiences and the reason for being so emotional about them.
All right. It's a great question, Adipriti, because you've lived your life suppressing your emotional nature. And now that you've come to this part of the path, that part of you needs its time on the stage of your consciousness to be experienced out. All those times you suppressed your emotions, all the times you were afraid to express it, all of those structures, they build up as a quantum of unexperienced experience. So even though your consciousness is now fully awake and is progressing on the journey, now actually these things can come to the light of your whole bodied attention. And what's happening is your emotional nature is now coming into existence from its deprivation, and it's beginning to release. Now there's a certain quantum to this that has nothing to do with the story. It is literally an energetic event that's occurring in your subtle body that's trying to include that whole deprived part of your nature into this life. So it's a process. And of course, most of these suppressed emotional experiences are what we wouldn't want to experience. But if you notice the quality of your state, where your question came from, where you're there connected to yourself, yet this is arising, that quality of your being that's holding the space for what's arising is dissolving this content that lies unexpressed in yourself. As it comes out into existence, it completes. So every time you have these reruns of events that have happened, you're simply dissolving the content of that unexpressed part of yourself, of your many bodies, of this case, your emotional body. So be patient. It is useful to recognize that what you're experiencing is you when you were younger, at different phases of your life, going all the way back to when you walked into the world and you recognized you were not able to be with what was arising. And all that, from every decision and every relationship and everything, has had you tend to suppress the unwanted experiences, although I'm clear you've enjoyed much of life. So those, no problem. You're fine with happiness, right? You're fine with pleasure, right? No issues with those. It's all the other unexperienced experiences that are now coming to balance the quantum of the infused quality of your person that has come now on the spiritual path with those undeveloped parts of yourself. It will all blend away. It'll all merge, and there won't be this discernment of this is more pleasurable or enjoyable or happy than this. That will all start losing that difference. And that's what equanimity is. Equanimity is to be at peace with what is, whatever that is. And as we progress on the spiritual path, the depth of that equanimity expands as we include more of our unexperienced nature. How long does it take? Well, periodically it happens for me. You know, when I'm in my human, and I can feel all the remnants of these bits and pieces of myself, the multiple selves. And sometimes they're some piece of this. I don't have, but it all fades away. It just becomes, you become untouched by it all because it's all included in you. And that's what becoming fully human is, by the way. You can only become fully human when you've become fully divine. So this is a path. I know you're perfectly fine with getting used to it, so that's what to continue. You got the right attitude, kid.
That's great. You still get to be called a kid.
Yes. Adipati, the first delight of being. So you're becoming that. Okay, next. What do we have?
Okay, so this question's from Lizzie Gregory. Is Lizzie on today? Okay. How can I tell when it's best to endure big emotional energy calmly or to express it safely and privately, like screaming in the woods or hitting a pillow or dancing?
Well, it just in part depends upon if you can scream in the woods or dance. The rest of the time you have to be calm. The principle here is that it's actually very much physical. That when emotional upsets happen or we get activated or reactive, then it's in the body. It's not just in your mind or in your emotional nature. It's in the whole body also. It wants to get rid of it, right? Like ducks that two fight against each other, and then when they're done, they just shake it all off and they go back, in their calm, floating on the lake together. So it's literally just needs to be shaken off. I have years and years of learning to manage my rage, and the thing that helped the most was to yell, scream, and beat the heck out of a couch or a pillow, with a baseball bat. I mean, it has a role to play in taking the physical component out of it. And then the quality of your being can step forward more and infuse that as just something that's arising and to endure calmly. So that's my advice on that. I think your inclination to work it out is the correct one. You're not always going to know it. It's better not to dump it on someone else because of the reaction it creates. It's best on to be able to be in responsibility for the reactivity instead of assigning it to the person that triggered you. That is always best to own it. That's what be a cause is. But once you've owned it, you still have the energy of it. And that you manage. I always recommend to everyone that there's a regular exercise program where you vigorously move your body. It just helps the body to become a greater collaborator with this integration of these undeveloped, still developing parts of yourself, of your personhood. Okay, all right.
Okay. Let's see. Number 4 comes brought to us by John Green. I think many of us are wondering, heads spinning, about how to hold the recent events in DC, along with a discussion from Sri Atmananda. We are doing the World Peace Meditation daily, working on our obstacles and structures, aiming to meet the tide of the gunas, studying the Gita, preparing to be useful. Is there more in the way of becoming a universal channel or more general comments which may help us today?
Well, for you, John, it's not to take responsibility for the suffering of others. It's to back away and know that there are forces at work which you can't control or make a difference in, except for having a certain willingness to be present with the costs and the qualities of human suffering that is occurring. That's empathetic quality of yourself that expands to other people, but also to this current situation. So it's a sign that you are an ideal person and that you have a kind of a moral sense of your role in the world, and all these are wonderful human qualities. But to do something, well, part of what you're really doing is learning to handle the part of your childhood, the part of you that gets overtaken by events you can't control. Again, it's the bits and pieces of ourself that doesn't have the sufficient boundaries to know what you can change and what you can't. And that vulnerability leaves you in this uncertain place. So that's actually what to attend to. The thing in your body that's going on when these thoughts and ideas as you look at the world situation. For me, the world situation is evidence of transformation. I think that what happened July 6th is an epiphany moment, and that it is evidence.
January 6th.
January 6th, sorry. That it is the break of the pattern of darkness. So for me, it was like wonderful. And it's always a shitstorm when things wake up. And we're now in the repercussions, but I've got to tell you, the corrective action is already in place. So, hell, this is like a tremendously important time for humanity that we're going through. So it's, in that sense, you can hold it from that vantage point, and therefore have at least a different story that where you're not overtaken by dread or worry or anxiety or grief. Yeah. I mean, that's going to feel better. And when you're in that place, you are a more effective person. And when you can include that, then when Polly shows up, or when your kid calls, or you get another notice from the medical board, you're there in equanimity and say, oh, shit's happening. What do you know? Here I am again. It is therefore, that's really how you can make the difference. Be with yourself. Be in truth. All right. There we go.
Okay, let's see. Number 5 is Susanna. So did you want to go through that one?
All right, let me, Susanna, you get a moment to ask questions, and you got a whole slew of them, right? So we've broken it up into a few pieces. Let's see, where is Suzanne, if I can see her.
She's not here.
Oh, she's not on screen. Okay, you're going to have to listen to this. So it's a great question, and it really is one who is a question that's consistent with people who are in the GTP or who are actually engaged in doing groups and mentoring. And that has to do with when to intervene and when to not. When do you have a role to play with what's arising in your group or with another person? And so it is relevant in that way. And when it's best to hold back and just hold space and let that person be where they are. So the default is hold space and to be in responsibility to whatever is arising inside in yourself. That's the default. If there's doubt, be with the default, because the default will give you a sense of the validity of what it is you're inclined to speak. So it'll be like a way of checking with yourself to see if an intervention is coming from a deeper place than something that might still be influenced by your mood or your perception or your attractions and repulsions and all the rest that you suggested here. So yes, you must know that when you do intervene, it will always be coded by some quantum of your personality. The universe can only manifest imperfectly, and it therefore, what if our intent is true, it will have a force beyond the apparent effect. It'll be causal. So if the intent is to lift the person into a different way of looking at what they're experiencing, or give them an opportunity to look deeper, if that's the intent, then how you do that is secondary. That's why I tell my people that you can't do wrong if you carry this intent. So therefore, no matter how it comes out, because what will happen is over the years, over time, you'll recognize that the secret is affinity. If you are in affinity, an affinity not based on attraction or repulsion. Matter of fact, a good test of affinity is someone who would normally be repulsive to you, and you have space for them to be that way. That would be evidence of affinity. And from that place, you can speak a greater truth as to whatever is there for you to say. If that intent is there, you can trust yourself. I mean, ultimately, when you get down to actually taking the role of holding the space for this force, this principle, this truth that we're all engaged in to come forward, a little is better than none. But know that just holding the space, not letting the rajas or the brilliant intelligence and perception you have, Susanna, get in the way of letting the universe do what it needs to do, and that each person has their own path that they have to travel. And even if you didn't say anything, they're going to get it. They know it or not. Or they already know it, and they don't need to be told again. Holding space gives permission for people to travel their own journey and to have faith in themselves. And that's where we're pointing to. That's what we're looking to enhance as we do this work. All right, let's see if there was something else here. How do I know when it's merely causing pain, when it perhaps is painful but serving? And that's the appropriate question. The role to know when suffering is needed. That the anguish, the poignancy of that particular moment that you wish to relieve someone from would serve them more than you helping. Now, I won't say this is true in an informal interaction with people who aren't on the spiritual path, but I will say it's true in the context of this work. Pain, suffering, poignant pain and suffering is usually a sign that the transformation is penetrating into new territory. And you don't want to thwart that. You want to let it get clear to become the peril, to become the crisis, so that the part of the consciousness in that soul is forced to break out of that habitual tamasic or rajasic structure and reveal its nature. So suffering has a role to play. So our job is not as healers. The healing we do is by bringing our being and empowering their being. Everything else is just a process until that happens. You're empowering some people to become their own healers, but you don't come healing by soothing the process. You become healed by getting to the root and breaking up, dissolving the structure that has created the pain in the first place. So that gets right down to the core of this work. It's why we include the darkness. It's why we include the poignancy of those things that otherwise would have you run to an acupuncturist or a healer or whatever, to meet it as an event that's occurring, because the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body grows through the process of the struggle, of shifting out of an old pattern of protection and defense and contraction and fear and judgment and projection into one that's more inclusive and true, carrying the possibility for you becoming a channel for this greater truth, which will, by its very presence, recover people's ability to heal themselves. And there's no greater role we have to play than to empower people to discover that they're the source of their solution. So we don't want to interfere unduly. Now there can be, because the intelligence and the awakened psychic can become a collaborator in the spiritual path. It is often useful to give a paradigm, a way of holding what's arising for people so they can be with it. So if you speak to that, to let people look at what's going on outside of the contraction of their particular struggle from a different vantage point, it takes the energy that's locked up into that vantage point and diffuses it and allows the person to gain the authority of their being. And then automatically they hold greater space for what's arising. That is useful. And it is probably the key of what mostly I do, is to recontextualize, to give an understanding using the intelligence of the psychic being, to step out of the particulars of the struggle. And sometimes you can't do that, because if the intelligence isn't there, if the psychic being isn't there, if it's not asking a question, then one is lost in the very content that creates the suffering. So then you just hold space, or you be soothing, be loving, because that's your other tool. That's the other skill that you get, is this unconditional love. Just to hold space, to feeling what they feel their struggle, and just be with them. Much, much heals in that frame of consciousness. Let me see if there's anything else here. Can it be possible, I think is what you meant to say, a way of doing this without creating pain? Yeah, maybe. It just depends on the moment of the gunas.
Look at Siddhartha.
You know, good day, bad days, right? Sometimes pain, sometimes not. You're not in control of that. All you're in control of is your own knowing, your own experience, and your purpose in that moment with whoever that may be, or whatever situation that may be. Ultimately, that takes over, and it makes the choices. And you're this part of you, the judger, the condemner, or the sanctioner, the consenter, or that which withdraws consent. It grows quiet, and it's just stuff happening, and it knows more effectively, more surgically when to step in and do the work when it's needed. Not us doing it; it does it, and so it comes out like, "Did I just say that? Mm-hmm. What was I thinking? Oh my God!" But that's That's the other part where we recriminate ourselves, where we second guess ourselves, where we come up afterwards where truth was actually able to speak. I can't tell you how many situations I've listened to in all the different groups where somebody just comes out with a startling truth and then beat themselves up for it. We have to get over that too. You have to recognize that something other than you is doing this. Now, it's got to be a right context, which is your intent, your purpose, what it is that you really wished for that person in the highest sense are also there. But the principle of that, as we develop doing this work, is more and more doing of the work. So, no worries. Be happy. All's good. It's perfect just like it is. You really don't have to do anything. That's the error of our Western educated ego. We can be is the most important. But because we're manifesting in the world of ego, we do have to develop skills. We do have to learn how to navigate the territory. We do want to become more perfect, more capable in playing the role we have. So there is that piece where we bring the human in for a greater perfection. And that's just a process. The more you do something, the better you get at it. That's how it is. All right. Where do we go for next? Here we go to number 4.
Carol, we go to number 6.
Oh, 6. Sorry.
Yes, you're just whizzing through these.
Wow.
And I have another one from Julia. So we'll do Caroline and then Julia, who is online. Sometimes, actually, more often than not, I have difficulties with my experience of the grounding cord. I have to focus really hard and almost force it down if it's going to manifest. I feel as if there is like a membrane or a bubble or similar that's covering my root chakra. I've had intense experiences connected to the cord, for example, falling down through it into the earth during world peace meditations. But it's rare, and most often I feel as if I haven't got an established connection to it yet. It's almost as if I have to create it from scratch each time.
All right, so Caroline, I'll give you a secret. As soon as you think the grounding cord, you've grounded yourself. As soon as you attend to grounding, it happens. In the psychic domain, things are just like that. So, but what's happening is your mind is saying, no, that's not happening. Because we habituate, live in this domain, and that becomes a reality, and it needs to be convinced that you grounded. So then it redoes it. And then it keeps trying to ground. So we get in the way of already being grounded by trying to confirm we're grounded. Now, this is part of the learning curve. As time goes on, what will happen is, just like you experienced in the world meditation, the body will respond to the grounding. And that is what you want to look to. You want to look to what the body is experiencing, like the sense of heaviness or the sense of pressure of your bottom on the chair or on the floor. The sense of sensation does allow you to get a signal that the grounding is going on. So that helps. But psychically, you're already grounded. Whatever is the content that you feel that needs to be done is already trying to happen by you intending for it to happen in that moment as a conscious choice. So we are actually steering the thing all along in our awareness, but our intellect and our mind and our story of doing it right and needing to do it a certain way and having certain kinds of evidence that it's done gets in the way. So be simple. Just intend to ground. Notice you got a story about it. Check into your body. See where else that's going on. Ground again, just to make sure your mind is feeling like it's a partner in the grounding that's already happened. You're trying to align all the multiple selves into this process, and it does take time to get them in collaboration and practice. So don't worry about it. There's no bubble. There's no dark force. You are sufficiently grounded. It's going just fine. It's what the mind does, comes up something to worry about. something up the question. That's the problem with questions and answers. That's the weakness of question and answers. Where the questions come from? They bubble up from our mental structures. So it's a little fraught arena. So I just use this question and answer to play with you all. So that's why I like it.
All right.
Are we done?
No.
No, we got something else.
Julia has posted a question. So
Okay.
I'm going to read her question. Good morning, Julia, and your kitty. I saw your kitty. In my understanding, we are encouraged to enter into meditation through focusing our awareness on the somatics of embodiment, grounding, and the breath. We decouple from trains of thought should they arise, but otherwise allow the meditation to naturally unfold. Relaxing in this way, I might slip into a deeper, quieter, disembodied space, an experience so timeless that upon return, I don't know if it was asleep or in samadhi. This uncertainty can be conflated by dreamlike experiences of being aware, but elsewhere than my chair. These may be hazy or vivid in the moment and upon later recall. I might be aware of myself in the chair having a vision, or be totally immersed in an alternate reality. Then there is the experience lately of being conscious, but fully relaxed, snoring lightly, and apparently asleep, yet present in anticipation of the closing bell. Can you comment on these experiences? Am I sufficiently focused during meditation? Am I falling asleep? What might I change or explore? Thanks, Julia.
Well, Julia, first and foremost, this is a wonderful indicators of that meditation is fully developed in you. The problem with meditation, of course, alone is it tends to go towards transcendence or expansion. It tends to go up or out. And therefore, it doesn't have the full ability to bring in what you access while you're in that state. You're actually merging with your psychic being, and your psychic being is expanding, but it's not the vehicle for transformation. It's not yet in your body. So therefore it rests here, and then it loses connection to the senses and to the mind, and it transcends. So you are in a wonderful integrated state of transcendence. Even to know, like to be aware that you're snoring means you're clearly you're awake, but you're not in the normal awakeness of your day-to-day awareness. You're awake in consciousness, noticing, oh, who's snoring? That was the first time I really realized I was in India. I was getting irritated by someone snoring. And, discovered it was me. It is the nature of the quality of consciousness as we expand out of our body. This is a truth. I don't dismiss it. But remember, this work is about embodiment. So therefore, you do want to bring it back into your body, but not necessarily your mind. The idea of linking the expanded psychic awareness with the body is actually the work of this manifestation. When we can be willing to sacrifice the bliss of the developed meditation to meet what's there in our system, then we begin to consciously manifest. Otherwise, you have to wake up out of your meditation, and then the world will bring you into your body. You'll get a bad phone call, or something you forgot to do that now there's a consequence. And so that'll bring you back into your body. But when you can choose to come back into your body, if you can develop that principle of grounding, where all the parts of you can be connected to it, and when you come back into the body, then you start feeling the current of becoming that's actually living you. And that's the Sat Chitananda. You come out of the Sat, which is expansion. You come out of the knowingness of the Chit and into the current of becoming, which is Ananda. This pulls the consciousness into the body. The consciousness then wants to be in the body. It begins to appreciate being a human being in a body. Things look radiant. Things look beautiful. It's like God, I'm here. I'm here in existence. So it's the purpose of this work is to take it beyond that. But this quality of meditation that you're in, the danger of it is it becomes tamasic, that we become habituated to the bliss, and we live in the bliss of this psychic bubble. And yes, and it has effect on the physical body. This bliss has a relaxation effects on the physical body. So it serves. It serves. It lets the body come into existence indirectly through you living in that. But there's a time to sleep and there's a time to act. So what we need to do is keep looking at situations that we can create for ourselves where we can integrate life with our quality of consciousness that's come to us, like participating in a small group or conducting a meditation or these kinds of things where you begin to become a channel for something greater than yourself. Then this principle of Satchitananda becomes a tangible event such that meditation is not senior. Life starts catching up and they become two equal expressions of your nature in existence. This is the unfolding of the spiritual path. And it's in that place that we can really begin to see all the different aspects of the creation that the Gita point to. We evolve into universal beings that are here for a purpose. So your state has come to you because of a longing and an aspiration that you've been able to align with and live. But then the invitation of this work is to put it to work. Put it into action. Make it real. And then watch. Watch how you impact the world. Learn to discover and take responsibility for what you're becoming. That's the invitation. All right, there we go. So are we out of questions?
Yes, we can take questions from the audience.
Okay. Any of you who would like to come in and join us, the juicier the better. We have Charlotte right off the bat. So then that doesn't stop anyone more of you. We still have 20 minutes. We got plenty of time.
Yeah, we have 15.
15 minutes.
We had a meeting last week and we were talking about when you meditate, the head goes forward. And you explained it perfectly at Lake Tahoe. We had a small meeting when the Sat energy goes in the back.
Yeah.
But I have forgot what you have told me. So could you please repeat it?
Oh,
Good.
that's another way of looking at this. When you're feeling when we're sitting in, especially if you're in the field of a teacher or you're in the field of a group, where the force of the descending force is available, then it comes in through the back channels or the front channels, which means if it comes through the back channels, it tends to pull your head back, and it wants to come through the front. It comes through your mouth and through the front of you. And when it's taking you deeper, when it's taking you into the asat force, it comes through the front channels and it pulls you in like this. So the head or the body tends to turn inward. So both serve, both work. And then there is a third state where the soft force comes in and just goes whoop horizontal. So you're in awareness and awake, even though you're in the state. You're awake. So those are the three ways the system can respond to the descending force. Any of them serve. My point of saying this is don't judge how your body moves by anything you say. There are other indicators. For example, one clear indication that Thomas is coming forward is when the head goes to one side or the other. That's the case that Thomas is being pushed up. Now, these are very pleasurable states. So, you want to go with the pleasure in this particular case. You want to go with the Ananda component because that's bring it into your body. So whichever way you go, even the Tamas does allow for the force to do its work. There's nothing more you need to do. It does help if you can consciously, if you've opened up the grounding cord, if the elemental structures of your body have been opened up, or if you've developed the chakra system, well, then you'll experience a channel. I mean, it'll be tangible, and it'll be running through you more poignantly. But until those channels open up, any one of those modalities prepare your system for becoming ultimately a channel. It is in that in every state of consciousness, sleeping, dreaming, or waking, in any of the surface consciousness, the subtle dream-like consciousness, and the what's called the sleep consciousness, but it's actually the transcendent, either to the Asat or to the Sat, all start becoming equally available to you. But that only happens, in my experience so far, is when someone's manifesting. All these channels really begin to open up so that you are in touch with all the different currents from above and from below when you are actually purposefully serving the work of the Gita. The Gita says, those who share this with others are the most dear to me, because it makes you Krishna. So when you have a context and you have opportunities to be able to be a channel for other people, for the presence or for the current, either, your system automatically develops more, and it becomes a more and more capable channel. Ultimately, it will be grounding through you for the world. It will coming up through you for the world, not just for what's arising in your present circumstances. And that's ultimately how we can be useful. So I don't know if I went too far, I probably did. But in terms of your immediate question, no problem, good signs, just let the force come in. But I would suggest when it comes in, open up your grounding cord, send it into the middle of the earth, and see if you can get it to run through your whole system. All right.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Charlotte. Okay.
Next up is Isa.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is about meditating with my eyes open. I've had a lot of skills developed in disassociation, and so going into transcendence is pretty easy for me. And so it was suggested recently for me to just do the sort of half-mast, unfocused 3 or 4 feet in front of me, and I've noticed I've been doing it for about a week and a half or so, and I've noticed a lot more body sensations, and I don't know, I might call it embodiment, presencing in the body, sensations more in the body instead of outside of my body. And then the other thing is I noticed my mind has a very smaller area that it could actually move around in. It's like a limiting thing for what my mind does.
Not as horizontal, not as expansion. Yeah.
So if you have thoughts, or if it's a good thing to do, or
yes, it's an interim. It's an interim step to keep yourself in physical present time. When you spoke it, I could see your aura tuck in. So when you're transcendent, your aura is very expanded, right? So it tends to go up and out horizontally. But when you begin to bring it in, your aura tightens in, and when it tightens in, the current gets like a lake going in a runoff stream, a creek. It gets organized, gets focused, becomes more of a current. Therefore, it becomes more felt, and therefore, the body becomes a co-participant with you, that allows it to come in and be grounded in your physicality. And this is when we become more effective in it, both knowing it and experiencing it and applying that force as a principle in our lives. So that's where to continue to go. So the grounding technique, I don't know if you've been exposed to that yet, is just one way of organizing our attention to imagine that what's come to us is going down and into our body and into the earth. So, we do have the elementals and the chakra techniques, and that's meant to help open up the body by giving us a way of structuring and our attention so that the body becomes more where our consciousness can participate.
And I haven't been exposed to the elementals or the chakras, if those are techniques that you offer.
Yeah, they are. And we make them available to people who are, coming along like you are. So you can certainly contact Yannicka. I don't know if Yannicka is on the call.
Yes, he is, or he
Oh,
was. Yep, he's right there.
Okay, very good. So that you can begin to learn the elementals. You're perfectly fine for learning the elementals and perhaps even the chakra techniques. But it's a whole procedure that we ask
Okay, you have to watch your time.
for people to follow. But yes, it would make a difference for your embodiment. Because yes, your practices have been transcendent, it has been very effective. Now you're pulled to this work. It's because you have a deep compassion for the world. You're here to be a human being useful. So that's exactly the right attitude, the right purpose to bring to this work. Very good. Thank you.
Next up are Dick and Yike.
Oh, namaste. both of you.
Namaste.
Good to
Namaste.
see you.
Good to see you both.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the opportunity to ask you a question.
Yeah, go.
I wasn't prepared for it, but I have a question about something you said while explaining chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita. You say something like, prior to being skillful with the gunas, you have to go to transcendence. And I had the opportunity of the feeling that in my case, it went the other way around. I've been, I think my path, maybe it started before, but it feels like it started with working on myself and on my moods, managing the moods. And I think that opened ways to transcend. So I was a bit surprised about it. And you also say something like, prior to this, the best way to keep connected to your original nature is transcendent. So this is also the same thing. While I feel that in my case, it went the other way around, but maybe, I don't know, maybe you can speak to this.
Well, it depends if a person is awareness or experiential. An experiential person, the development of the journey is through their experiences, their psychological human embodiment. So therefore, getting better psychological treatment, trying to become a better human, it actually serves in both cases, but it's the path by which you then become more available to the transcendent. So it's from below to above. And then there are those who it's the above forces that comes down because they're more open to the upper chakras. So it's from, I call them top downers, right? And there's a lot more top downers than bottom uppers in my experience. I would say maybe 30%, 25% are bottom uppers. So the transcendence can become the means by which someone can recognize the gunas. But the transcendence won't be able to do that unless they're enough in their body to be able to know their own gunas. Once you can track the reactivity or the less reactivity or the desires or the cravings of the body and all the different tamas, rajas, and sattva, well, then there's nothing, you're in a muddle. You're not actually able to go anywhere in awareness. So they have to embody, they have to come down and meet the stuff in their body they've not had to meet because they pop up into their intellect, to their projections, to their judgments, to whatever else. And, we're all a mix of the two, so it's not so simple. So it works in either case. Now, ultimately, transcending the gunas occurs in two places. It occurs with the Sat and occurs with the Asat. Now, what's talked about in all the traditions is the Sat. So when you come to that supreme state of the awareness, nirvana, the Brahman, the absolute, then you are in a causal position in a relationship to the gunas. The only thing is most people, I mean, almost all people aren't able to live in that state. They go into that state and come out and all the shit is there as it was before. and they will tend to dismiss all of it, any responsibility for any of it, not developing as a person, and therefore they keep going into their transcendence to feel better about themselves or not to have to deal with the issues. Well, we're not interested in that on this path. We're interested in coming in and owning the shit and then lifting it up into something that is nurturing for the world. So yeah, but therefore, ultimately, when one goes beyond the gunas, be you embodied or disembodied, you're in the causal state. The embodied form can manifest from that place. The disembodied form can't. And there's the ultimate byproduct of being able to come to responsibility for how the gunas have been running you, which would be how your modes are running you, how your thoughts are running you, and all that stuff. Yeah.
So that's why you ask us, you support us to manifest.
Exactly. The nature of this work is not about getting out of Dodge. It's about actually getting into Dodge. So, it is not an escape route. The freedom that comes in the midst of your bondage transforms the world. When we can own and be present with the parts of ourselves that we haven't embodied and met, we shift the collective consciousness in powerful ways, both because of our own personal sacrifice to meet it instead of our usual strategies to avoid it, but also because when we take that action, it's the supreme acting through us. When we own our shit, it is the Brahman that makes that sacrifice in us. And therefore, we empower that principle in ourselves and inevitably for the world, no matter what is the situation that we come into or is present or present with. All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you both.
Next up is Sophie.
Okay, Sophie, you are our last one.
All right, Sophie,
Good
welcome.
to see you.
Namaste.
Thank you. Good to see you. Namaste. I have a question. I do believe I'm getting more embodied, but at the same time, as I'm doing the elemental techniques, I do experience an overwhelm in my system when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to approaching the Bhagavad Gita and all the scriptures. And I would really like to get your guidance on what can I do to face this fear of my own spiritual development.
All right, what is the nature of the experience of this fear? Anxiety, existential doubt, what is it?
I think it's in the existential field, and also the awareness and the realization that we are something more than just this body, and the origin of the soul, and the access to the spiritual dimensions, etc.
Sophie, you are the new kind of human being. That means you don't need the scriptures per se you were born awake. And what your work has always been is to become a human. And you were in a situation where there was a struggle between being spiritual or being human. So your trauma is associated with the struggle of your father and that whole thing. So it is obviously what has come to you as a battle. This is your battlefield. As you learn to own what you've already attained in spirit and to embody it and begin to live fully as a human being. And that is the work with your generation, is to bring the very developed spiritual possibility into your body and then to give you a structure of actions that can allow that embodiment to be the means of your spiritual capacity to manifest. So this anxiety is like it was for Adipati. It's a quantum of unmet experiences. Obviously, you don't want to be in that existential ambiguity, right? You're not here and you're not there. You're kind of in between. So it is the trauma. And you've now come to the place where actually you're beyond that trauma, but the pattern, the habit of that emotional effect on your system is still there. So this quantum is going to arise. You don't have to do anything with it. Don't let the mind run with it. Don't feed the story from the past. Catch yourself, pull it back into the sensation of the existential stress, anxiety in your body. Try to ground yourself because this will help. Because if you just let it stay in your body, it'll just keep feeding. So you have to ground it either down or up in your case. You could probably send this existential stress, once you've organized it enough in where it's located in your body, you could probably send it up and out and get rid of the excess in that moment, or send it down your body through the grounding cord into the earth and get rid of it that way. Either of those avenues will relieve something of the intensity of it, and you'll gradually get used to that quality that's still trying to be worked out in you. I mean, you're doing it right now. Now that you've found the truth and you found the path, and you now know what you need to do, it's all going to resolve. It's all going to sort out. That's your future. You're going to know what you've become, and you will be able to manifest it and serve the world. This is where it's going. For me, it's as plain. I don't have to have faith in it. You're evidence of it already, Sophie, and you're a whole generation of people who are coming to this resolution. So know that as well. It's perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's have the good part where we just sit in silence and stillness and be in our body and be with what's there for us. Feel the connection and the interrelationship that we have with each other. Feel that field of support, truth, love, wisdom that's available right here. The Supreme Presence. It's very personal as well as universal. It's intimate and vast. And it can be felt right there, right now, in each of you. Just 5 minutes. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat Shree. All glory to Supreme. May truth manifest. Namaste.